Hi, folks. In this video, we look at Beauvoir's view to others, both other philosophers in this course and what she thinks about our relation as humans to other fellow humans. What I want you to do is pause your videos and see if you can place all of the characters from the course, our main philosophers, Kierkegaard, Dostoevsky, Nietzsche, and Beauvoir, on this little continuum. How much do we depend for other people and our historical contingent circumstances on others? So pause your videos and see where you think those four philosophers would line up. Okay, that was your chance to pause your videos. I'm going to start with Kierkegaard. So where did you place Kierkegaard? In my view, Kierkegaard should go far over here to the left with other people, with very little reliance on other people. Now, I recognize there's something difficult and perhaps controversial. So you might have put him over to the right more because Kierkegaard's view of love, remember, means that my identity depends upon the person, the object of my love, the other person I'm involved with, just like the woman from Beauvoir depended upon the German soldier for the meaning in her life. But I think that's true. So if that's what you had in mind, then great, bravo. But on the other hand, Kierkegaard doesn't think that she needed to meet that German soldier in order to have meaning. He doesn't actually believe in fate in that sense, in which two individuals were really fated to come together. Rather, when you meet somebody and you become committed to them in a certain way, it truly was a random historical circumstance and contingency, but your commitment makes it such that you live your life as if you were fated to be together. So if it wasn't that German soldier, maybe she would have met a different German soldier. Maybe she would have gotten devoted to some cause, maybe for the liberation movement to fight against the Nazis. Who knows? So you don't need one ultimate commitment. That's what's so fascinating about Kierkegaard's version of Christianity. And we see this doesn't really emerge thoroughly in the parts of Fear and Trembling that we read from Kierkegaard, but let me just give you some other quotes that really speak to this. I mean, for one thing, he says, everybody has the potential for faith. So in that sense, there's nobody who was dealt such difficult historical circumstances they could never become a knight of faith for him. So clearly that means that if the woman from Nevers didn't become a knight of faith because of her relationship with the German soldier, she could have done it with somebody else. And look at this other quote. This is amazing. The true knight of faith is a witness, never a teacher. That's the sense in which, they can't even hope to communicate the meaning of their relationship to the outside world. So they could never be a teacher in that sort of sense. And in this lies the deep humanity in them, which is more worth than the foolish concern for others' weal and woe. I mean, nothing could seem diametrically opposed to Beauvoir than this. Beauvoir thinks if you are not fighting for the liberation of others and the rights of others and concerned with their weal and woe, then there's something lacking in your humanity. There's something deeply deficient in your sense of what gives human lives meaning. So it's the knight of faith that knows that whatever is truly great is available equally for all. So really, historical circumstances are not going to impede anybody's ability to become a knight of faith, according to Kierkegaard. So that's the sense in which, that's why I'm thinking he's far to the left. Okay, now how about Dostoevsky? Where did you place Dostoevsky? Hopefully you could easily see he should go somewhere over to the right, because it's Dostoevsky's idea that it's only through loving connections with other people, acknowledging them in all of their sinful nature, their whole self, both sides of themselves, that we can actually heal our wounds and get salvation. So it's through loving relations with others that make us saved, according to Dostoevsky. Clearly, this is going to depend upon other people in a very obvious way. Now, what about Nietzsche? Where would you place him? I'm curious what folks thought about this. Basically, I think he's sort of a little bit in the middle, but also more towards Kierkegaard's side. I think meaning for Nietzsche is not necessarily interpersonal. So again, it's complicated in part depending upon whether or not you put emphasis on other people or the emphasis on historical circumstances. Because I think Nietzsche would say you are deeply indebted and dependent upon your historical circumstances. What you have to do in order to become a free spirit for Nietzsche is you have to take all of those influences and make something creative, artistic out of them with your life. And that is always going to be historically embedded. And how that's going to look for one person will be radically different than how that might look for another person. But you don't need other people to do that at all. You can be an iconoclastic individual for Nietzsche. You can transcend values and not care deeply about any other people. That's the sense in which Nietzsche's life, the Kierkegaardian knight of faith might actually be a Nietzschean free spirit too, in some possibilities, although I don't think in all cases they're going to so qualify. So I think Nietzsche is somebody who emerges here, or I might even put him further over here to the left, depending upon how you interpret other people versus historical circumstances. Now, how about Beauvoir? I think Beauvoir is the person, oh yeah, I moved Nietzsche over, I guess. Beauvoir is the person who goes furthest over to the right. I think she thinks that our connection with others is even deeply, is more dependent and more embedded even than Dostoevsky. And we see this in a couple of places already. The way in which she talks about the universal demands that freedom makes on us, which binds us all together, and the fact that it's an irreducible truth of ours that we are fundamentally concerned with others. And you can test your intuitions. I mean, can you just act like a total jerk to somebody and walk away and not care? I mean, I guess you do see some people in power sometimes do this, start treating other people like trash. And I mean, power seems to almost inherently corrupt people. But isn't it the case that we think those people are horrible for doing that? And there's ways in which even the people who I mean, that is Beauvoirian despair in a sense. The people who become so powerful, they start treating others in terrible ways. That is tyranny. And Beauvoir thinks that is fundamentally the despair of the passionate person. And the sense in which we condemn that means that we do feel this ways in which we are tied and stitched together with the rest of humanity. Let me give you, we only have time. I tried to keep the readings manageable and read a few excerpts from The Ethics of Ambiguity, but I brought out a few more quotes where she really develops these ideas because we don't do it full justice in such a short treatment. She has a couple of really fantastic lines. We as Legion, we as human subjects are not just radically individualized subjects who care about our own freedom the way the passionate person does, but we are connected to others. And what's interesting is her philosophy of oppression and the harms of oppression. For one thing, it was radically innovative. It was groundbreaking for her to recognize that, to philosophize about the Holocaust literally as it was occurring. And then she took that and this allowed her to pivot and then see the ways in which individuals like women are oppressed in French society that had nothing to do with the political moments of the Holocaust. And then that leads her just a couple of years later to write The Second Sex. I mean, it's an absolutely amazing work in which, or her body of work, which informs all sorts of contemporary discussions about the harms of oppression and what one needs to do in oppression and the paradoxes of oppression, like how one can be a productive ally to others is a theme that she starts to develop even in The Ethics of Ambiguity here. And the ways in which there are commonalities between many different forms of oppression, whether it's of Jewish people or racial oppression or gender oppression, are some of the themes she also explores in The Ethics of Ambiguity. Okay, so what's interesting, what emerges just out of this tiny quote here is our interdependence, because what that means is our interdependence, our potential for meaning is dependent upon other people, and our potential to be harmful and hateful is related to other people. And this is connected. This should maybe ring a bell. The dark side of this, of course, is something that Sartre explored in the play No Exit, in which other people can be my source of despair and can be my eternal damnation and torture and be my hell. But what Beauvoir sees, she's got the optimistic picture, and she sees that this means something fundamentally great can happen too. Because if humans are responsible for oppression, we can be on the other side and we can fight for liberation and we can fight against oppression. Part of her discussion of oppression is this sense in which humans bear responsibility. You can have a tough lot in life. Things can go terribly for you, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're oppressed. If there are other people who are systematically discriminating against you, if people are closing off your potential for freedom and limiting the ways in which you can realize your subjectivity existentially as a human being, then that is the philosophy of oppression that she develops in this work. So she has these amazing lines like, humans are never oppressed by things, and we don't rebel against things. It's against other humans who hold us down, for which the acts of rebellion and revolution are called for. And furthermore, another aspect of oppression that she talks about is what it does is it dehumanizes us. Because remember, essential to the human condition is to be subjects who have freedom and who have to do things, act in the world. So closing off people's freedoms, limiting their freedoms, or eradicating their freedom is dehumanizing them. And in this duality between mind and body, between soul and physical world, what it does is you are eradicating their subjectivity and you are turning them merely into objects. That is in a sense what oppression does. We can understand it at its existential level in terms of that ambiguity of the human condition. This talk about freedom in Beauvoir's work is deeply connected with a sense of projects, and this is what we're going to explore in the next reading and in our other readings, and openness to the future. So this is the sense in which freedom requires promoting openness to the future, and that means not just for yourself, but for others. And so if you are limiting other people's potential and oppressing them, that is deeply problematic. If you are not fighting for other people's liberation, then that is also problematic. So it's through this way in which oppression is tied to the responsibility that we have for freedom that I think Beauvoir's hero, the existentialist character that emerges from her philosophy is the person who fights for liberation, either for oneself or for others. But if you understand the sense in which we are deeply social creatures who owe things to each other, then that is the foundation of Beauvoir's ethics and what she thinks is valuable about existentialism. Okay, thanks.